After a break of many, many months, we've come back to reading through Matthew's Gospel, and that will take us all the way to the end of the liturgical year. And if you remember way back in the beginning of February, before we stopped, we looked at Matthew chapters 5, 6, and 7, which is the Sermon on the Mount. And the sermon is the heart of Jesus' teaching for how he wants his followers to live, the type of spirituality he expects us to have, and to shape it by the lives that we live. And today, Jesus, after teaching and instructing his apostles, he sends them out on a mission. And Matthew tells us at the sight of the crowd, Jesus' heart was moved with pity or compassion. We just celebrated Friday the wonderful feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. It reminds us in a vivid way of the compassion, the pity, and the mercy of Jesus. And remember, Jesus said, "I have come to reveal the Father." And so the pity, compassion, kindness of Jesus is the pity, compassion, kindness of the Father as well. And if you skip back to Luke, his gospel, which we read last year, remember we had those three parables. I call it the lost and found department, the lost coin, the lost sheep, and the lost son. And in the story of the lost son, the prodigal son, after the son basically tells his father, "I wish you were dead, give me my inheritance," and squandering all of it on loose living, and even reducing himself to the level of a pig. When he returns home, Luke tells us the father caught sight of him and his heart was moved with what? How would you react in that scenario? What would your heart be filled with? Anger, revenge, self-righteousness, hatred, disgust, disappointment, indifference? But Luke tells us the father's heart was filled with pity. His son was back, the relationship restored. I'm sure the people who first heard that were a bit confused and even stunned, because the father's reaction didn't line up with what they had been told about the nature of God and the demands of justice, or even how to deal with sin. And it would be up to Jesus to demonstrate by his own suffering and death the truth of who God is, the mercy of his Father. And so Jesus looks up, sees the crowds, and he realized that they were confused and not knowing what to do. They followed him, but they weren't sure exactly how to or what it even meant. And so Jesus, in compassion, Matthew tells us, appoints shepherds to guide them. And so Jesus calls the 12 to follow him and to follow his example. But if we go back to the sermon, in light of the sermon, let's face it, it's hard to follow Jesus, which is why I think Jesus has so many admirers but so few followers. And which one are you? Which one am I? Which one are we? And remember the teachings of the sermon. Jesus said, "You have heard it said, 'You shall not kill,' but I say to you, whoever grows angry with his brother has already committed murder in his heart. Or you have heard it said, 'You shall not commit adultery,' but I say whoever lusts has already committed adultery. Say yes when you mean yes, and no when you mean no. Everything else is from the evil one." And then it gets much harder. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Do good to those who harm you. Forgive, and do not count the cost. And so, in light of all that, do you want to follow or just be an admirer? But when you see it played out, and you see a man or a woman react in such a way that reflects the posture, the teachings of Jesus, well, it's jaw-dropping, it's life-changing, it's show-stopping. Because the reaction pierces through the darkness. It slices right through it. I think of the Amish in Pennsylvania a few years back when a man went into one of their schoolhouses and killed their children. And the Amish reached out to the man's family. refusing to let the evil perpetrated upon them go any further, to gain any foothold in their community. And that's what makes the gospel of Jesus so attractive, so powerful, so life-changing, because it extends grace and hope and mercy where none should be found, even to you and to me. We've all, at some season in our life, walked the wrong path, did the hurtful, spiteful thing, and that compassion of Jesus is and has been extended to us. So, do you want to follow Jesus? If you do, then Jesus has even more to say to you. Jesus says, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must first deny himself. It requires that you say no to yourself. It requires that you're not ruled by your appetites, you're not ruled by your ambition, and you're not ruled by the rules of the present moment. You will not have the opportunity to act or react like the world around you. And then he added something that I think makes all the difference. And it meant a whole lot to the people of his day, maybe not as much to us. Pick up your cross. Pick up your cross. In the first century, if you were carrying a cross, it meant that your independence had come to an end. And then Jesus adds something that makes the difference between a believer, an admirer, and a follower. Take up your cross daily, daily. And I think this is what makes the difference. You can pray the sinner's prayer once, but there's a difference because the first followers of Jesus took up their cross daily, and it made all the difference. It made the reign of God, the kingdom of God, become real in our world. And it changed the world for the better, and it brought with it the promise of a different way of living, from the master slave, the slave and the outcast, to the brothers and sisters with equal worth and dignity. So this really is every morning, every day. Thy will be done, not mine. I take my cross, I abandon my independence. And that's what it means to follow, to live, to line up behind Jesus. But sometimes we fall into the trap of being a believer, an admirer, who just says, bless my family, bless this food, and if there's a problem, Lord, I'll let you know about it. And those people do that, but they don't change anything. They don't make a difference. But the followers, those who take up their cross daily, do make a difference. They do change things. And so Jesus, after thus instructing the 12, deputizes them, sends them on mission, and tells them to go and change things. Show them by your words, but more importantly, by your actions, what the Father is really like. And we know they did. We are proof that they changed things. So, are you a follower or an admirer? If you want to follow, to get behind Jesus and go where he goes and do what he does, then pick up your cross and follow daily.